What really happened to Courtney Hadwin after America's Got Talent? The shy girl with the golden buzzer and a voice like Janis Joplin became a global sensation overnight. But behind the fame was a heartbreaking truth no one saw coming. Bullied at school, doubted by the public, dropped by her label, Courtney's rise came with pain most never knew. In this video, we break down her full journey, from busking in the cold to battling the music industry. Stick around, because Courtney's story isn't just shocking, it's one of survival. This is the tragic, powerful truth behind AT's most unforgettable voice. A nervous girl from nowhere. In 2018, a 14-year-old girl stepped onto one of the biggest stages in the world. It was America's Got Talent, and she was about to audition. She stood in the spotlight with shaking hands, her body visibly trembling. You could almost feel her heart pounding through the screen. Her name? Courtney Hadwin. The judges looked curious but cautious. She barely spoke above a whisper when they asked her questions. But it was what happened after the music started that would change her life forever. She came from Hesleden, a quiet, working-class village in the northeast of England, a place that hadn't made headlines in decades. Coal country, cold, forgotten, and tucked far away from music cities like London or LA. It's the kind of place where you don't see showbiz dreams come true, her grandfather once said. But Courtney always had something different in her. Showed early. She'd sing around the house, humming soul music like she was born in another decade. Her parents didn't have much, but what they did have, they gave to help her chase that spark. Still, it wasn't enough. So Courtney took matters into her own hands. She started busking on weekends, singing outside shopping centers, catching the attention of strangers just passing by. Not for attention, not for fun, for survival. Every coin dropped into her case paid for her voice lessons. She would sing for hours just to afford 30 minutes in the studio. Her mom recalled, teary-eyed. So when she stood on that A stage and Otis Redding's Hard to Handle began to play, the world was about to witness years of silent sacrifice erupt into one unforgettable moment. As soon as she opened her mouth, everything changed. The timid girl transformed. Her body jolted with rhythm. Her voice roared like it had lived 100 lives. The judges were stunned. The audience screamed. By the end, they were all on their feet. And just like that, 11 million people saw her live. Within days, her audition passed 250 million views. It wasn't just a performance. It was a resurrection of rock and soul from the unlikeliest of places. But what no one knew yet was how much pain, rejection, and fight had gone into that one 3-minute song. The Janis Joplin reincarnation moment. The instant Courtney finished, Judge Howie Mandel slammed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained from the ceiling, and Courtney froze, almost paralyzed by disbelief. Her eyes widened, her hands pressed against her face. She had no idea what to do, but the crowd sure did. They exploded with cheers. "You are not from this era," Howie said, shaking his head in awe. "You're a soul trapped in the wrong time." Even Simon Cowell, known for his brutal honesty, looked floored. "You're like a lion when you sing," he told her. "I mean that." Within hours, clips of her performance had flooded the internet. Everyone was talking about this strange, shy girl who sang like Janis Joplin and danced like she was born on a James Brown tour bus. People didn't just like her, they needed her. Social media crowned her the reincarnation of Janis. Headlines called her the savior of soul rock. Music blogs said she was the shock AG needed. She had this wild, untamed voice that made people feel something again. But for Courtney, that moment was bittersweet. Because while the world was just discovering her, they didn't know what it had cost her to even stand on that stage. Behind the glitter, she carried years of pain. The girl who was mocked for her voice. Before Courtney ever stepped onto a TV stage, she was just a kid with a dream and a voice that didn't quite fit in. At school, she wasn't the popular one. She wasn't even liked for singing. In fact, that's what made her a target. Kids would whisper behind her back, roll their eyes when she sang in music class. Some didn't whisper at all. "You sound like a boy," they'd tell her. "It's weird." Others straight up told her to stop singing. It crushed her. She didn't sing to impress. She sang because it was the only way she felt like herself. Her idols weren't pop stars. She didn't care about chart hits or trends. She was obsessed with Janis Joplin, Little Richard, James Brown, and Aretha Franklin. Her voice was raw, soulful, powerful, and completely out of place in her tiny English school. Even after she appeared on The Voice Kids UK in 2017, things didn't get better. In fact, they got worse. Though she made it to the finals and performed hits like "I Got You," "I Feel Good," the internet trolls came out fast. "She's just screaming," some wrote. "This isn't singing, it's noise." Her granddad remembered reading one of the comments aloud. He paused halfway through. "It broke her," he said, "but she kept going." Courtney never fought back with words. She fought back with music. "I'd rather be different than fake," she once said. But choosing to be different meant choosing a harder road. Singing in the streets to survive. At just 12 years old, while most kids were worrying about homework and games, Courtney Hadwin was on the streets, singing. Her family couldn't always afford vocal training, but she didn't let that stop her. She began busking in town centers, bringing her old-school soul voice to cold British streets. She never asked for handouts, her mother recalled. She earned every lesson she got. Some people loved it. Shopkeepers would bring her warm drinks or clap along. Others weren't so kind. Other buskers got territorial, her grandfather remembered. They didn't like a kid drawing bigger crowds. Courtney didn't care. She stood in the cold, pouring her voice into the wind for anyone who would listen. Every pound she made went straight back into her training. No makeup, no flashy lights, just grit. She'd come home with freezing hands and a full heart, her dad said. She was chasing a dream most adults would be too scared to follow. Not for fame, not for followers, for freedom. And just when it seemed like she might finally be breaking through, the world pushed back. The Voice Kids, UK. The backlash begins. Before America knew her name, the UK already had a glimpse. In 2017, Courtney competed on The Voice Kids UK. It should have been her big break. She sang with fire, channeling James Brown, moving like Tina Turner, giving everything on that stage. And she made it to the finals. But what happened next hurt more than any elimination ever could. Viewers weren't kind. The same energy that stunned the judges rubbed some people the wrong way. "It's not singing, it's shouting," one tweet read. "She's trying too hard." At school, it got worse. The classmates who once ignored her turned mean. Fame made them nastier, her father admitted. It was jealousy, plain and simple. Courtney began dreading the hallway. What should have been a celebration became a nightmare. She could have stopped right then. She could have said, "Enough." But something in her wouldn't quit, because deep down, she knew her voice wasn't a mistake. It was a gift. And just 1 year later, she would step onto a bigger stage, with bigger stakes, and finally have her moment of redemption. Fame and the fabricated narrative. When Courtney Hadwin's America's Got Talent audition blew up, headlines painted a perfect fairy tale. A nervous mystery girl from a forgotten English village who stunned America with a voice from another era. Producers leaned hard into that angle. Every cut, every story package built her up as a total unknown, someone who had just walked in off the street and changed her life in a single moment. But within days, the truth started unraveling. Fans online discovered that Courtney had already competed on The Voice Kids UK in 2017. There were performance clips, news articles, interviews. She wasn't an unknown. She had been on national television before. She had experience. She had fans, even before AGT. Suddenly, the viral story started to crack. The magic of the moment, for some, it faded. "Wait, I thought she was just some girl with no experience," one viewer tweeted. "This feels fake now." Others weren't as kind. "This was all scripted," one fan posted. "She's talented, but this underdog thing was clearly staged for drama." The backlash didn't fall on the producers, it fell on Courtney. At just 14 years old, she became the center of a controversy she didn't ask for. "People thought I lied," she later shared, "but I never said I hadn't sung before. I never tried to trick anyone." The pressure was crushing. Instead of celebrating her voice, people began to question her honesty. Her story was no longer just about music. It became about trust. And for someone who had already faced bullying for being different, the public criticism hit even harder. But Courtney didn't respond with drama. She didn't go online to defend herself or try to rewrite the narrative. She did what she'd always done. She went back to the music. She kept showing up, kept singing, kept proving that her voice wasn't manufactured, manipulated, or fake. It was real, just like her. The loneliness of overnight fame. To the outside world, Courtney Hadwin was living a dream. Viral stardom, standing ovations, golden buzzers, millions of fans. But inside, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a cage. When the world is screaming your name, it's easy to feel like you're surrounded. But Courtney was more alone than ever. She didn't get invited to flashy Hollywood parties. She didn't want to be a red carpet regular. She wasn't the type to go live on Instagram or tweet constantly. "Talking scares me," she once said. "Singing is the only time I feel brave." Her voice made headlines, but off stage, she stayed quiet. The same girl from Hesleden, still shy, still introverted, still unsure how to exist in a world that now expected her to be a star. Her parents noticed the change. "She didn't know how to be famous," her father said. "She just knew how to sing." Even back home, things felt different. Friends drifted, people treated her like she had changed, even though she hadn't. Courtney struggled to find where she fit in, too famous for normal life, too private for celebrity life. While fans argued online about whether she was the best AGT contestant of all time, Courtney was dealing with something far more personal: crushing anxiety, isolation, and the fear that she might never feel normal again. Fame didn't fix her shyness. It only made the spotlight feel hotter. Schoolyard scars and online trolls. Even after her AGT run, Courtney Hadwin couldn't escape the cruel voices, online or in real life. Back in school, the bullying didn't stop. Some classmates mocked her voice, calling it weird or fake. Others spread rumors just for attention. "She thinks she's famous now," they'd whisper in the halls. The same kids who once ignored her now resented her. "She cried more than she smiled," her mom said in a quiet interview. "We tried to keep her grounded, but it was hard." The fame made her life more complicated, not easier. Online, the attacks were even more brutal. Strangers dissected everything: her look, her movements, even her identity. "Why does she dance like that?" people asked. "Is that even her real voice?" Some questioned her gender expression. Others called her a fraud. It wasn't critique, it was hate, and it came fast and loud. Courtney saw Ed Sheeran quit Twitter because of similar abuse. She thought about doing the same. "I almost left," she admitted, "but I stayed because I knew they were wrong. I had to keep going." For her, music was never about fame. It was about freedom. Singing gave her a voice when everything else tried to silence it. She didn't sing to prove the trolls wrong. She sang to remind herself that she was still strong. A show's sweetheart, then its controversy. By the middle of the season, Courtney Hadwin had become the face of America's Got Talent, the fan favorite, the last act of the night performer, the must-watch star. But with the spotlight came suspicion. She often closed out the episodes, getting the biggest reactions, the most dramatic edits, the longest standing ovations. Viewers started to notice the pattern. "Why is she always last?" one commenter wrote. "They're clearly giving her special treatment." The show's story packages played up her nerves, her silence, her small-town roots. Everything was edited to perfection. To some, it felt too perfect. "She's already been on TV," one tweet read. "She's not the underdog they're making her out to be." Fans were divided. Some saw her as a once-in-a-generation talent. Others thought the show was rigged in her favor. Courtney, as always, stayed silent. She didn't clap back. She didn't post long rants or explain her side. She just kept showing up week after week, walking onto the stage and giving everything she had. No matter how loud the controversy got, she kept doing what she came to do, sing with her whole heart. Because for her, it was never about strategy or screen time. It was always about the music. She didn't win, but she won the world. When the AGT finale aired, the world held its breath. Courtney Hadwin had become the season's breakout star. Everyone thought she'd win, but she didn't. She placed 6th. The reaction was immediate. Shock, anger, confusion. She was robbed, trended on social media. How could someone with 250 million views not even crack the top 5? Some blamed the backlash. Others blamed the producers. Some just chalked it up to bad luck. But Courtney? She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She didn't beg for sympathy. Instead, she smiled. "I didn't come to win," she said backstage. "I came to show who I am." And in that moment, she did something even more powerful than winning a trophy. She walked away with her head high and her soul intact. The world noticed. Celebrities like Sharon Stone tweeted their support. Paloma Faith praised her voice. Luke Evans shared her performances with words like unreal and timeless. Record labels called. Producers reached out. She had offers, more than she ever expected. AGT had been her platform, but it didn't define her. Because Courtney Hadwin wasn't just a contestant, she was an artist, a fighter, a voice the world wasn't ready for, but desperately needed. And even without a title, she had already won something far greater: the respect of millions. The record deal that didn't last. After her explosive run on America's Got Talent, Courtney Hadwin's future looked unstoppable. She wasn't just getting praise, she was getting offers. Major ones. In late 2018, she signed with Psycho Music, Simon Cowell's label, and partnered with Arista Records. For any teenage artist, this was the dream. A record deal, industry backing, and promises of international stardom. Finally, it seemed like her voice had opened the door to a whole new life. She released her debut EP, The Cover Sessions, a haunting, emotional collection of raw covers that reminded fans exactly why they'd fallen in love with her in the first place. It wasn't overproduced. It wasn't plastic pop. It was real. Plans were made for her to perform at Woodstock 50, a reboot of the legendary 1969 festival. It would have been the perfect stage, a celebration of rock, rebellion, and soul, the very spirit Courtney carried in her voice. But then, things started unraveling. First, the festival fell apart. Cancelled. Delays, funding issues. Then, finally, dropped altogether. That disappointment. But it was nothing compared to what came next. In 2020, the world shut down. COVID-19 brought the music industry to a standstill. Live shows were canceled. Studio sessions paused. New artists, especially those still finding their footing, were left floating in limbo. Then came the real gut punch. Psycho Music quietly folded in 2021. Without warning, Courtney found herself dropped. No label, no PR, no machine. Just like that, the entire platform she'd been promised vanished. She was 17, still a teenager, already back at square one. "Everything I thought was solid just vanished," she wrote in a rare, vulnerable social media post. "I was back to doing it alone, but this time I wanted to do it my way." And that's exactly what she set out to do. Because while the world saw her lose a deal, Courtney saw a chance to finally be free. Rejection became her fuel. A lot of young stars fade after their first hit of fame. They shrink under pressure. They disappear. Courtney Hadwin didn't. Instead of hiding, she started building. Quietly, independently, fiercely. Without a label, without a massive team, She went back to what she knew best, making music that meant something. No corporate filters, no A&R executives, just Courtney and a blank page. Her first independent track, Breakable, was more than a song. It was a confession, a letter to the world, a stripped-down anthem about fragility and strength. Then came That Girl Don't Live Here, a defiant, electric scream that felt like a breakup with her past self. And finally, Monsters, a gritty, bold single that landed on Billboard's hard rock digital chart. The message was loud and clear. She wasn't waiting for validation anymore. People used to say I was too loud, too weird, too much, Courtney told a fan in a live stream. Now I make music for the people who get me, not the ones who want to fix me, and people were getting it. Her sound was evolving, blending rock, punk, blues, and soul. Her lyrics were darker, more honest. Her voice still raw, still explosive, still unmistakably hers. Courtney didn't come back to chase the fame she lost. She came back to take control of the artist she was always meant to be. Courtney versus the industry machine. The more Courtney carved her own path, the more she pulled away from the expectations of the industry. She started turning down offers, ones that looked good on paper, but came with strings attached. Labels wanted to soften her sound, make her more commercial, more marketable. She refused. She didn't want to be a product. She wanted to be a voice. Courtney walked away from cookie-cutter deals, passed on influencers' collaborations, and avoided the viral gimmicks others relied on. No TikTok dances, no glittery trends, just pure, soul-deep music. "Everyone wants you to be something you're not," she said in a backstage interview. "I'd rather be small and real than big and fake." That kind of integrity isn't easy, but it earned her something even more valuable than mainstream attention: a loyal fan base. They followed her from AGT to YouTube, from sidewalk covers to self-funded singles. They didn't care if she wasn't on the radio. They cared that she was honest. Courtney handled everything herself. She co-wrote her songs, directed her visuals, shaped her look, controlled her sound. She wasn't playing the game. She was rewriting the rules. And in doing so, she proved she wasn't just another viral star. She was a true artist, raw, flawed, and fearless, from silent girl to storyteller. By 2024, the transformation was undeniable. The once quiet girl who trembled on national TV had grown into a powerful storyteller, one who no longer needed anyone else's words to tell her truth. Courtney's music started hitting deeper themes: mental health, trauma, resilience, healing. Her songs weren't just stories, they were survival. In her track Spellbound, she sings about the feeling of being emotionally trapped, held back by anxiety, fame, and fear. It struck a chord with thousands of fans struggling with their own demons. "Music helped me say everything I couldn't," she told the crowd during a mental health awareness concert in London. "It gave me power when I felt invisible." That same year, she performed at the New York Pops Gala, invited personally by music legend Clive Davis. For many, it was a jaw-dropping moment. The shy teen from AGT now commanding one of the most prestigious stages in the world. She didn't shout. She didn't dance wildly. She simply sang and silenced the room. Her debut album, expected in late 2025, promises a mix of genres: pop-punk, soul, retro rock. But more than that, it promises to finally tell her story, in her voice, with no edits. Every lyric, every chord, every rasp in her voice. Proof that the quiet girl had something to say all along. And now, the world was ready to hear it. She was always the real deal. Now, looking back, it feels so clear. Courtney Hadwin was never a phase, never a fluke, never a viral gimmick or industry trick. She was always the real deal. Even when she shook on stage, it wasn't an act. It was fear. Even when she avoided interviews, it wasn't arrogance. It was anxiety. And even when she sang like her life depended on it, it's because, in a way, it did. At just 19, she's endured more than most artists do in a lifetime. She's faced public backlash, school bullying, online cruelty, industry rejection, and a global pandemic. She's lost deals, lost friends, lost faith, but she never lost her voice. She's still here, still singing, still unapologetically loud, soulful, awkward, and brilliant. She's not just a singer, one fan tweeted recently. She's a reminder that the quietest souls often have the loudest voices. And it's true. Because Courtney Hadwin isn't just chasing dreams anymore. She's building a legacy, one note at a time. Courtney Hadwin's story proves fame isn't always a fairy tale. But real voices can't be silenced. From bullying to independence, she's still standing, still singing. If her journey moved you, please hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Thanks for watching. And remember, the quietest ones often have the loudest impact.